Okay, good.
Okay. Want me to start over?
Sure.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the Lee County Zoning Board of Appeals Thursday, August 6, 2020 meeting. Would you call the roll, please?
Bruce Forster.
Here.
Frank Burrow.
Here.
Mike Pratt.
Here.
Gene Bolte.
Here.
Glenn Hughes.
Here.
Rex Meyer.
Here. Good job. The next, we need the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion? We have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Second. You want everybody to hear me?
Sure.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any commentary? Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. The next thing is motion to adjourn previous meeting pursuant to the county board's approval of petition number 20-P-1552. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So,
Glenn motions, Mike seconds. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. New business. The first of the evening is petition number petition 20-P-1553. Petitioner Mark Foster. The petitioner is Mark Foster, concerning permanent parcel number 16-01-23-100-007. Elmira Township requesting rezoning from Ag 1 agricultural district to C1 neighborhood office and business district for the allowance for residential and commercial construction business. Petitioner here. Okay. So we'd like to hear from you. I need you to be sworn in. Do you have any? I'll let you hand down to those. And you have to give me one to read.
You don't know that, right?
It's not that I've never done this before. Okay, thank you. Raise your right hand. We need to hear you also. So raise your right hands. You solemnly swear or affirm.
Yeah.
Okay, still right. Okay. Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give should be the truth.
yeah,
Okay. Whoever is going to speak first, state your name, and then tell us about the project and what you're wanting to do.
that's one last one.
Yeah.
Go ahead. My name is Peter Koster. I own and operate Koster Brothers Construction with my brother Mark. Over 10 years ago, we incorporated a partnership with just the two of us. Working out of our personal trucks for my brother's farmette, we were doing many kinds of construction and plumbing. As the years passed and our experience and demand have increased, we have grown to a company of 9 employees and have over 800 customers. During this pandemic, we have all realized how essential our jobs are. Over the last decade, the property we wish to rezone has allowed us to meet the essential needs of many customers. It is our hope we can rezone the property and continue to fill the high demands of our trades.
My name is Mark Coster, and I second what my brother had said, and we will, the step with growing a business and something we didn't look forward to or look for, but it's part of the politics of everything. So we just look for this next step and look to comply with local government and all that.
Dave?
So because the parcel is located in Palmyra Township has a comprehensive plan that they follow. And so they were to appear in front of the Palmyra Planning Commission and do sort of like a findings of facts. And then their recommendation would go to the Palmyra Township Board. And in front of you, you have that recommendation. I could read that for you. The recommendation, the Palmyra Township Plan Commission met on July 13th. The Palmyra Board of Trustees met on July 21st, 2020 to review this petition. After full disclosure by the petitioner, the public, and the Planning Commission, there was discussion about the issues of spot zoning. After reviewing the findings of facts provided by the Palmyra Township Plan Commission and discussion related to the Palmyra Township Comprehensive Plan, the Palmyra Township Board voted to object to petition 20P-1553, rezone Ag 1 to C1 Neighborhood Office and Business District. The rezone request in this petition is in direct conflict with the Palmyra Township Comprehensive Plan and is as displayed in the attached documents that you have. And said location of the petition is in a rural character preservation area of the Palmyra Township. Therefore, the Palmyra Township Board recommends that the Lee County Zoning Board deny petition 20P-1553 and the rezoning request.
Does the board have any questions at this point?
Is the zoning around you all ag zoning, everything affecting you?
Yes.
Is there anything close? Anything but ag?
Yes,
Yes. Yes, there is, or yes, there isn't.
it's all ag.
Excuse me, I can't hear, I don't know about the rest of the people, but I can't hear.
I can't hear, I can't hear. Can't make it out.
We'll just have to pass the microphone.
You just want me to talk closer? Okay. All right.
I'd like to hear a little bit more about, apparently you did a comprehensive presentation to Palmyra Township. I'd like to hear a little bit more about the business, the activity in and out of the property, the number of employees that are at the site at any one time. You said you've got 9 employees, but my question is how many of them are actually effectively on the business site? I'd like a little bit more detail on it. And as the letter says, you apparently provided a comprehensive presentation to Palmyra Township. I'd like to hear a little bit more of that.
Sure. So most days, employees, the 9 employees include my brother and I. We show up to work at 7 o'clock. There's business vehicles parked on the property. We make our plan for the day. We load up materials and go to our separate job sites. So employees would maybe be on the property for maybe up to an hour in the morning. every once in a while during the day, we just pick up or unload material, and then also at the end of the day, to return the business vehicles and then take their personal vehicles home. Very rarely is there anybody there all day, unless there's maybe there being shop or something. So yeah, basically in and out. We use our buildings for storage of materials. We get supplies in from different suppliers around the area, mostly plumbing supplies, but there are some building supplies too left over from other projects.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Duffy, there is a family-owned business criteria with 5 employees or less, isn't it? Is it 5? What's the number on it?
So in-home is, I think, what you're referring to. In-home business is usually the person who owns the parcel and a family member is allowed.
I thought there was a certain number of, up to a certain number of employees we have for a family-owned business.
If they're part of the family.
Okay. That was not my understanding, but okay, I want that clarification. My main reason was, since they're not actively working on that facility, in manufacturing or some sort of construction capacity on the facility full time, doesn't even qualify. Is there even a need to change zoning? So I'm asking you that question as the administrator, because I question whether there's even a need to change the zoning under that criteria.
And what I'm understanding, in-home occupation would be owned by a family and employees would be in the family.
Okay. But the fact the employees aren't other than for approximately an hour or so per course of the day, aren't on the facility. So they're not actually actively working on that facility for the most part. So I guess I'm wondering, how does that fit in that criteria? Mr. Boonstra,
Yes, sir.
have you got any clarification on that point?
If you could direct me to which portion of the zoning code you're referring to?
I just had an understanding that there was a family-owned business or a family business factor in the zoning, and I don't know, unfortunately, I don't know the specifics, which is why I was asking for clarification.
Sure.
And so the question kind of relates as, would there, even though they have 9 employees, they're not actively working on the site for an extended period of time, how do they fall into that criteria for family-owned business or family-run business?
I can tell you off the top of my head, I'm not sure what exception you're referring to. I'm happy to try to look it up through our zoning code real quick.
So to clarify, in-home occupation employs family members only.
So the,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying she beat me to it.
I was gonna ask, what makes it C1? If they just store material there on the farm,
and had an office someplace else. I guess how much stuff can they do and have one without costing the C1?
Is it agricultural? Business?
As soon as it's construction materials, it's all gonna have.
Commercial. Commercial business.
Any other questions?
Just to say, it's hard to overrule
Elmira Township. When they're the local entity. It's hard for us to go against that.
Is there any comments from anybody in the room?
What kind of business, what kind of stuff are they supplying?
What's that?
What kind of material are they talking about?
Construction material,
But
plumbing material, what he was talking about.
when you're in the plumbing, and you're seeking to have a building or?
To run our business. To run our business from that property.
To run a barber shop.
State your name, please.
Yeah. You know, I sat on the county board for 8 years. David Gussie. I sat on the county board for 8 years, just got off a couple of years ago. And we had problems hearing what was being said. And most of the time it was because the people that were speaking into the mic would be here and then they'd lean back in their chair. These things, you gotta get close, you gotta have darn near swallow them. I realize that my hearing is not the best, but I'll bet people can hear what I'm saying. Yeah. I'll bet you a plug nickel on that, because you're not afraid to speak up. Now, for Pete's sakes, this is supposed to be a public meeting, and right now, this is basically a private conversation. Now speak into the mic.
Okay, all right. I understand your concerns, Mr. Gussie, but my question is, does anybody in the audience have anything to comment on this particular petition at this time? Okay, all right. If nobody has anything to say, where do we go?
Facts.
Finding of facts.
First item, effective proposed use upon the character of the neighborhood. Based on statements made and the findings from Elmira Township, property sits on 4 acres. There are no neighbors close by the property. Therefore, there is minimal effect to the neighbors. Any other criteria on the character of the neighborhood?
I think you have to follow up with whatever else Elmira said, and that is, however, it'll affect the neighborhood as it is spot rezoning and that conflicts with the township comprehensive plan.
Are there any other impacts on the character of the neighborhoods? So at this point, we have minimal effect on neighborhood. However, spot zoning conflicts with the township's comprehensive plan.
Is there any discussion? We have a motion? We have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, next item, effective proposed use upon traffic conditions. There is limited traffic. Hours of business are Monday to Friday. Traffic includes pickup and trucks, some trailers with equipment, no heavy equipment on the roadways. Impact would be minimal.
Any addition? Any comment? We have a motion? So moved. Have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Effective proposed use upon public utility facilities. None that I'm aware of. Any other?
Any other comment? Hearing none, we have a motion. So moved. Steve motion, Mike seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Effect of the proposed use upon public health, public safety, and/or general welfare. Based on commentary, it appears that there is minimal or no effects on public health or safety or general welfare.
Are we talking about the solar panels? or-
No.
Okay.
We're talking about
This
this
is-
construction company at this point.
And at this time, we're dealing with finding of facts, so public commentary is not. Any other comments from the board on the public health, public safety, or general welfare?
Just that it does not fall in line with the Elmira Township Comprehensive Plan.
Question on that is whether that has anything to do with public health, safety, or welfare. It may impact the character of the neighborhood, but it has nothing to do with public health, safety, or welfare.
Okay.
Anything else? So at this time, effective proposed use upon public health, safety, and welfare is minimal or none.
So moved. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Number 5, effects of proposed use upon the surrounding properties.
That's where your spot zoning comes in.
It would be spot zoning in the middle of an agricultural district. Spot zoning in the middle of an agricultural district. Any other comments?
Then we have effects of the proposed use upon the surrounding properties, spot zoning in Ag 1 district. We have a motion.
Mike motion, Dean seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Effects of the proposed use upon environmental concerns.
None.
None noted. Anything else?
So moved. Second. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Based on the finding of facts, the recommendation to the full board would, is there a motion?
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend this to the full county board. Recommend approval to the full county board.
Do we have a motion for approval? Do we have a second? We have a second. Is there any commentary? If not, call the roll, please.
Mike Pratt. Dean Bose.
Yes.
Glenn Hughes.
Yes.
Fred Burrow.
Yes.
Rex Meyer.
Abstain.
Chris Worth.
Yes. Your motion will go before the full county board on whatever date it is. August 20th. Okay? All right, thank you.
We'll begin our next petition in a minute.
Well, she don't have any. She's in the car. She's only got. Why didn't you see these folks?
Yeah, just
Yeah, okay.
after. We want to.
Right. Okay. When you're ready. It's up to Bruce. So I think that's what we'll do.
The next petition of the evening, we're going to use the moderator for the meeting. And it'll be retired Judge Slavin. But in the meantime, I'm going to read the petition. Petition 20-P-1554. The petitioner is Eldina Solar LLC, permanent parcels number 18-08-25-400-010, 18-08-24-100-002, 18-08-25-400-009, 18-08-25-100-003, 18-08-25-200-002, 18-08-24-400-001, 18-08-24-400-002, 18-08-25-200-003, 18-8-24-300-005, 18-08-24-300-006, and 14-09-30-300-001, 14-09-19-300-001, and 14-09-30-100-002. South Dixon and Nachusa Townships petition for a special use zoning for a solar energy system. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to. Oh, we have to make a motion that, we need a motion from the board to turn the, moderator over to Judge Slavin. Facilitator, pardon me. I'll get the right word.
I would so move.
We have a motion to turn it over to the facilitator. Do we have a second? Craig seconds. Any comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Lee County ZBA. Welcome. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is healthy and remaining safe. My name is Tim Slavin, and I'm a retired circuit judge engaged now as an independent contractor to what is called facilitate this hearing. I have no adjudicatory responsibilities. I am not for or against any particular position. I am a neutral. I am here hopefully to add some organization, efficiency, and flow to these proceedings. Indeed, as Chairman Forster indicated, this is Alvina Solar LLC's petition, Lee County 20P 1554 for a special use permit as part of a proposed solar energy system, sometimes referred to as an SES, on 1,288 acres, 1,288 acres, not, as the apparent rumor goes, some 4,000 acres. As shown by certificates of publication, notice of this hearing was published in the Dixon Telegraph on July 14, 2020, and the Amboy News on July 15, 2020. Notices to adjoining property owners have been provided. First of all, hoping you understand, tonight's Zoning Board of Appeals session may be organizational only, as it depends on how much time we take getting through the preliminaries, as we set some ground rules and, quite frankly, test out the technical and practical protocols we've planned to accommodate everyone, but keeping everyone reasonably safe at the same time. After I finish these opening remarks, we will try to set out dates for the next few substantive sessions. Initially, because of the unique circumstances visited upon us in 2020, courtesy of COVID-19, all in attendance this evening and at future sessions are required to wear masks, and the hearing and rear conference rooms have been arranged so that the seats are at least 6 feet apart. I hope this helps everyone feel medically comfortable. Accordingly, occupancy to this hearing room is maximized at 40 people, and the rear conference room, another 15 people. I hope we all appreciate the protocol developed to allow these proceedings to even take place. Now, for a bit more substance, there are two groupings of attendees as this Zoning Board of Appeals hearing moves forward. One group I will refer to as necessaries. These are people who must attend this hearing in person. They consist of your hardworking, practically volunteer Zoning Board of Appeals members, your marvelous zoning officer, Dee Duffy, your expert IT staff, Mike McBride and Alice Hinkle, your astute state's attorney, Charlie Boonstra, employees of the petitioner and its attorney, Courtney Kennedy, and largely its witnesses and our hardworking and skilled court reporter for this evening, Peggy. The others I will group into what I will call interested parties. These are those of you folks who are either in person or remotely on Zoom, or the Zoom teleconferencing platform, because you simply want to observe your county government at work, or beyond that, you have a particular interest in these proceedings. This is the time to advise that the Zoom meeting ID is, and if you want to partake of Zoom in night's future, you may want to get out a pencil and a piece of paper and write down the meeting ID is 915-3923-9154, and the password is 209840. That meeting ID and the password will remain the same throughout this hearing because it's what Zoom calls a continuing meeting. Accordingly, if you're with us in person tonight but are not comfortable with the safety protocols in place, you can always join us at future sessions remotely. The other way that interested parties can access these proceedings is by YouTube. In order to view the proceedings on YouTube, on the World Wide Web, you search for YouTube, and then in the search box that will come up, you type in Lee County, Illinois Zoning Board of Appeals, and then I'm told another box will pop up, and you type in the date, obviously, August 6th, 2020, and you'll be able to view the proceedings tonight. And then on subsequent nights, you can do the same thing, except of course, change the date. Now, YouTube allows interested parties to view and hear the proceedings, but does not allow interested parties to participate because there's no interaction on YouTube. Participation can be done remotely through the Zoom platform. So the next process I will try to explain is the methodology for interested parties to participate. Everyone will have the opportunity to participate. However, because of the necessary electronic filtering, my usual process becomes even more central, and I will try to flesh it out as my presentation continues and as we move through our time together in the days ahead. For everyone's benefit, I want to provide the opportunity to participate in a manner that is orderly and as efficient as possible. There are many possible reasons for an interested party's appearance this evening, whether it's in person or on Zoom, and during subsequent sessions. You could be a member of the public who is joining us simply as a citizen and spectator. You could be a member of the public who wants to be heard. This does not necessarily mean someone who is absolutely for or against the requested special use, but someone who wants to participate. If you are such a person, you will fall into any one or more of three categories. First category, you want to give testimony. This means that you desire, under oath, to testify to facts relevant to the board's eventual decision. Such is not the time to describe your feelings or announce your opinion, but to aver facts, and you are subject to cross-examination. Everyone so wishing to testify will be given one opportunity to do so. Second category, you want to be able to cross-examine witnesses. But please, that is just the time to ask questions of a particular witness, not to argue with him or her. Everyone so wishing to cross-examine will be given one opportunity to cross-examine each and every witness. The third category, you may be an interested party who wants to make a closing statement or a public comment. That would be the opportunity to tell the board how you feel or give them your opinion based on the facts adduced during the whole hearing process as to what their decision should be. Everyone so wishing to give a closing statement or public comment will be given one opportunity to do so. For those of you joining us on the Zoom platform this evening or in future sessions, the software allows an interested party to indicate a desire when the time comes to ask questions of a witness, to present one's own witness, to testify oneself, or to give a closing statement or make a public comment. When I do indicate that the time has come to begin an interested party stage, one who is video conferencing simply clicks the icon at the bottom center of the Zoom screen labeled Participants. And from the options that then appear, please click Raise Hand. If one is teleconferencing while remaining connected, one hits the star or asterisk symbol on the cell phone and then the numeral 9. We should then see any raised hands on the screen. However, unlike previous hearings, I don't think we'll be able to do so on a first come, first served basis. So calling on the raised hands will probably be by randomly referring to the name, email address, or last 4 digits of a phone number that appear on that screen. All right, written communications sent in advance of this hearing or any written material intended as something for the board to consider is subject to the board's rule, Article 5, Section 12, that 8 copies be provided. Any communication received that does not comply with this requirement may not be considered by the board. I will now review the chronological progress of the hearing so everyone understands how the process works and understand everybody's place in it as we, and the timing as we move along. The applicant has the burden of initially going forward. Accordingly, its agent or attorney may first make opening remarks. Then the applicant presents its evidence, one witness or document at a time. I will place each witness under oath or affirmation. After each applicant witness, the state's attorney, the zoning officer, members of the ZBA first, and then interested parties, both on-site and remote, have the opportunity to cross-examine back each of those witnesses. And please, I emphasize again, this is the time only for questions directed to the witness testifying, because that's the person under oath. After the applicant's evidence, the zoning officer has the opportunity to present her witnesses and documents. After each zoning officer witness, the state's attorney, the zoning and members of the ZBA first, and then interested parties, both on-site and remote, have the opportunity to cross-examine her witnesses. And once again, please, this is the time only for questions directed to a witness. After the applicant and zoning officer have presented their respective evidence, then interested parties may present their evidence, one witness or document, including themselves, by the way, or document at a time. I will place each such witness under oath or affirmation. After each interested party witness, then the applicant, the state's attorney, the zoning officer, members of the ZBA, and other interested parties have the opportunity to cross-examine each of the interested parties' witnesses. Then the applicant may offer rebuttal witnesses or documents one at a time, and I will place each such witness under oath or affirmation again. Those then may be questioned by Mr. Boonstrom, Ms. Duffy, members of the ZBA, and interested parties one at a time. If the applicant does present any rebuttal witnesses, interested parties may present surrebuttal witnesses one at a time. After interested parties surrebuttal witnesses, the applicant, the state's attorney, the zoning officer, members of the ZBA, and other interested parties have the opportunity to cross-examine each of those witnesses. Finally, first, the applicant is given an opportunity for closing remarks, and lastly, any interested party will be given an opportunity for closing remarks or public comment, as I previously described. Okay, there are some sub-rules, after which I promise I will finish boring you with anything further. As you may have heard, each session has a time limit under the zoning board rules of 2.5 hours. However, we certainly don't want to cut off anybody right in the middle of something, so I will certainly make a reasonable effort to let someone finish a particular stage when the time limit has been reached, or if there is very little time remaining at the end of the stage. I simply may continue the session rather than starting the next stage. I also have the discretion to call for short recesses. Under the zoning board's rules, I have the duty to rule on the admissibility of evidence. While the strict judicial rules of evidence do not apply, I will exercise some equitable control of what is being presented with or without an objection. We do and will continue to have a court reporter here taking down what is said during the proceedings. I ask all to please be mindful of her job. She cannot take down two people talking at once, nodding heads or gestures, and while I happen to know she's very skilled, there is a limit to how fast a person can talk, including yours truly, and expect her to keep up. Lastly, I do ask for civility and decorum. This is certainly a public forum, but please be respectful of all who consider it important enough to be here. I ask to refrain from displays of approval or disapproval, and as now with all public gatherings, I request that you either turn off your cell phones or at least put them on silent. All right, Mr. Kennedy, you represent the petitioner, and you may proceed with an opening comment.
Thank you, Your Honor. Can everyone hear me? My name is Courtney Kennedy, and I'm here on behalf of Albina Solar LLC. First and foremost, I'd like to preemptively address a few rumors that have floated around regarding this project leading up to tonight's hearing. There have been some rumblings of a 4,000-acre solar farm in Albina by a company named Duke Energy. I'm here to tell you tonight that we're not a 4,000-acre solar farm and we're not Duke Energy. Rather, this project is being developed by Geronimo Energy LLC. Geronimo is no stranger to the county and has been involved in some developments within the county. As most of you know, Geronimo is a leading North American renewable energy development company based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with satellite offices all over the U.S., including Walnut and Mansfield, Illinois. Contrary to what some have heard, Alvena filed its petition for special use and variance for the construction and operation of a 175 megawatt solar farm. This project, as proposed, spans approximately 1,288 acres. This project is located in South Dixon and the Tuska Townships within Lee County, with that area being zoned Ag 1. As some of you know, the operation of a solar energy system, or SES, is allowed in Ag 1 districts, but only as a special use under Lee County Ordinance 12-17-002. That's why we're here tonight. As a general housekeeping matter, and as Judge mentioned, after filing its application, Alvena Solar, through my office, sent proper notice to all adjacent landowners by certified mail, return receipt requested. In addition, a notice of the public hearing was published in the Dixon Telegraph on July 14, 2020, and in the Amboy News on July 15, 2020. For tonight's hearing, we'd like to give you an introduction and overview of the proposed project through the testimony of Ben Adamich. Following tonight's hearing, you will also hear from Brett Schneider, construction manager, Andrew Lyons from Cone Resnick on land values, and attorney Jerry Quick to discuss drainage, the AMA, property rights, and other related concerns. It is my hope that along the way, you will agree that the project as proposed meets all requirements and standards required of it in the Lee County Ordinance and is compatible with the surrounding areas. At the conclusion of the hearing, the petitioner requests that you recommend the project to the Lee County Board and approve the 3 variances contained within the petition. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy, and you may call your first witness.
Thank you, Judge. As a preliminary matter, I have the proofs of service of the newspaper publications and the certified mailings. I'd like to submit that as our first exhibit.
All right. You got it, Mark?
Would you like me to mark it A or 1? Does it not matter?
1, please.
Okay. Petitioner's exhibit 1. Judge, I'd like to call our first witness to be Ben Adamich.
All right, Mr. Adamich, you want to step up, please, and somewhere in the middle here, pick your spot. There, and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Right to the right of it, which we measured at 6 feet away.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Yes, Ben Adamich,
And can you spell your last name, please?
Adamich.
And how are you employed?
I'm a full-time employee of Geronimo Energy.
And what is your job title with Geronimo?
My job title is Market Lead Developer.
And what does that encompass?
I manage our portfolio of developments for a region of states, including Illinois.
And how long have you been with Geronimo?
I've been with Geronimo since I started in 2013.
Do you have any other experience with renewable energy?
For a brief stint, I worked at an environmental and engineering consulting company where my primary job function was working as a consultant on various wind, solar, and other energy-related, such as natural gas, development projects.
So how many years would you approximate, Mr. Adams, that you have in the renewable energy business?
7 or 8.
Are there any certificates or licenses that you've obtained?
No professional licensures, no.
And could you provide a brief summary of your educational background?
I have a bachelor's degree
In what?
in liberal arts in environmental studies.
And you're here on behalf of the petitioner, Alvena Solar LLC?
Yes.
And are you aware that Albina Solar filed its petition for special use permit and variance?
Yes, I am aware of that.
Did you assist with the preparation of that petition?
Yes,
And did you also submit an application binder with various information concerning the proposed project?
yes,
Am I holding out that application binder that you helped prepare?
yes, you are.
Do you recall when you put this binder together?
Mid-June of 2020.
And was it in anticipation of tonight's hearing?
Yes, it was.
Judge, at this time, I'd like to enter the application binder as our second exhibit.
Call it number 2.
Thank you. Mr. Adams, are you familiar with the Lee County ordinance regarding solar energy systems?
Yes, I am.
And you understand that if I refer to it as an SES, you know that I'm talking to a solar energy system?
Yes,
In your opinion, does the proposed project meet the requirements set forth in the ordinance?
yes, and we included a large section in our application packet to that regard.
And in this application binder, did you take the requirements of that ordinance and did you address each one line by line?
Yes, that's correct.
On behalf of the petitioner, do you agree to be bound by any and all proposals and representations contained within the petition, the application binder now marked as Exhibit 2, and the testimony made under oath during this public hearing?
Yes, I do.
Have you discussed the Albina Solar Project with any organizations, schools, and members of the community who stand to be impacted by the project?
Yes, we have, Representative Geronimo have spoken with local townships, school districts, and a number of neighbors of the project.
And can you tell me the characteristics of the neighboring lands to the project?
Primarily agricultural, with some homes in the vicinity.
Speaking generally, does a solar energy system emit any noise?
No,
What about shadow flicker?
no,
Given your experience, are there any environmental concerns for solar panels?
not that I'm aware of, no.
Did you perform the EcoPact consultation as required by the ordinance?
Yes, we did.
And what was the result, if any?
There was no adverse impact on the project anticipated.
Will the solar farm, in your opinion, have any effect on the public health, safety, and/or general welfare?
No,
Will the proposed solar farm project strain the existing infrastructure of Lee County?
no, it's not anticipated.
And why not?
Solar generally as a use is fairly similar to an agricultural use in general during operations. Typically, stress on roads is not high. The site is visited relatively infrequently by pickups typically. On a project of the scale in which we're proposing in Lee County here, the Albina Solar Project, we'd anticipate maybe 4 to 5 staff members on site full time that would be working with pickups. We don't anticipate an impact on the road infrastructure. The solar project doesn't utilize water or sewer facilities, and thus the county's services aren't strained in that regard. And overall, we provide for significant property tax revenue while not utilizing the services in which that property tax revenue is used for.
Would the project, as proposed, require any new public roads?
No,
Will the proposed solar farm take the property within the project out of ag use?
no, it will not.
Will the proposed solar farm take the property within the project out of row crop production?
Yeah, and I think just to opine on that a little bit more, I think generally from a zoning classification standpoint, we're not proposing a rezoning of property under the existing Lee County ordinance. Solar farms are allowed in the agricultural district and are generally speaking across the country viewed as an agricultural use from a land use zoning standpoint. Typically, when we're talking with prospective landowners on participating in our projects. It's typically row crop ag properties that we're pursuing developing on across the Midwest, I would say generally. And the value, I mean, the proposition to folks is, essentially what we're proposing to do is, develop a ground-mounted solar array, and instead of harvesting the sunlight to produce a crop that's, typically used for food or energy, we're producing electricity while not having a lasting long-term negative impact on the underlying agricultural soil and property. And so at the end of the life of the solar project, essentially it can be decommissioned and reverted back to a traditional row crop ag use if that's the best use at that time. But it's becoming less and less controversial to say that. It's essentially, from a farming standpoint, it's a viable use, and it's different than row crop ag, but it's still solar, generally ground-mounted solar facilities generally perform in the same function as growing traditional row crops.
It's my understanding that you have a presentation that you'd like to go through tonight, is that correct?
Yes.
I'm going to have you proceed with that, and then we'll follow up with some questions.
I think we're just handing out a few copies, and then there's a projector screen up there with the slides.
Thanks.
Mr. Adams, please proceed.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, again, my name is Ben Adamich, here with Geronimo Energy on behalf of the applicant Alvina Solar LLC. I'll give you a brief background on Geronimo Energy, who we are, and what we do. You can flip forward here. There we go. All right, so next slide. Geronimo Energy, as Gordon mentioned, we're a leading North American renewable energy company based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. We've successfully deployed a little over 2,400 megawatts of renewable energy projects around the U.S., primarily here in the upper Midwest. Most notably is our Green River Wind Farm, which we develop and now own and operate, partially within Lee County, Illinois. We're at about, we're a little over actually 100 full-time professionals now. We've been growing pretty steadily over the last 6 or 7 years. And our pipeline, whereas before I'd say is generally focused in the upper Midwestern part of the United States, over the last few years we've expanded our reach to more broadly developed projects all across mainly the United States. So we have a pipeline of around 7,000 megawatts in development total. About 3,000 of those are what we would call advanced stage development, say there are permits, interconnection agreements, or commercialized power purchase agreements with operators. So a little bit about our background further back than the last 6 or 7 years. We were founded actually by a farmer in southwestern Minnesota who was approached by a wind energy development company at that time in the mid-2000s. And he didn't really like the way that he was being treated by the development company. He didn't think, A, he was getting a fair deal, and B, he didn't think they were treating the community the right way. And so, being the businessman that he was, he saw renewables, and at that time mainly wind energy, becoming a blossoming business venture. And so started Geronimo under the basis of developing his own wind farm on his own property. in southwestern Minnesota. And that was how we got our start. Now today, as I mentioned, we're one of the top wind and solar developers in the country. And so we, with those founding groups, we try to implement farmer-friendly development practices on all of our wind and solar energy projects we develop and own and operate. So give you a sense of, we were in front of this board last year. I don't think we presented a slide of kind of where we're active, but here, we have project developments all across the U.S. Like I said, we're previously kind of focused in the upper Midwest, but now we have a significant reach broader than we did even a year ago. We still are quite busy in Illinois, particularly with this Aldina project and a few others that we're either own operate. We're starting construction on a 200 megawatt solar project. Any week now, they just got about 9 inches of rain last month, so we're just waiting for conditions to dry out a little bit. And so we're actively, very active, I would say, in the Illinois, state of Illinois generally on developing projects. One change since the last time we were in front of this body was in July of 2019. We were acquired by National Grid, which is a large multinational utility company based out of the UK. Essentially, they're the grid operator for the United Kingdom, and they also have regulated electricity and gas utilities on the northeast side of the United States. We're actually part of their deregulated arm called National Grid Ventures, and we're essentially their renewable energy platform for North America. And what that does to Geronimo is it allows us to continue to grow as a company. We're still the same development company we were before, but it gives us the financial backing of one of the strongest utility companies in the world. And it really allows us to deliver on promises we make and the projects that we're developing on. It's really been a boost for our So next I'll talk about the project specifics. As mentioned, we're developing a project, another solar project in Lee County called Aldina Solar. It's named because we're developing it around the area of Aldina, which is on the east side of South Dixon Township, west side of Massachusetts Township, about 4 miles southeast of Dixon. Overall, this is a land use zoning proceeding, so we don't touch on economics too much on the project. But overall, our project is anticipated to generate around 30,000 U.S. homes worth of power annually. We'll probably be a little bit more than that by the time we would end up building the project. From a tax revenue standpoint, based on the Illinois State Standardized Property Tax Assessment for solar systems, we'd anticipate around over 20 years, $15.5 million of local tax revenue. And that represents around a $10 million increase to tax revenue to the school district that we're in over 20 years. And so, overall, that's generally speaking a big driver for support around these projects, particularly in states like Illinois, where property taxes go local. We're generating a commodity that goes to the electricity grid and is sold on such, but the taxes stay local. So I did want to touch on that, even though this is a land use proceeding. The next slide is probably can't see it from that far away, but essentially the backing to the numbers that we calculated based off the state standardized assessment. So overall, again, it represents around a capital investment of around $180 million, with 21 of that being local, which would mean money that we're spending within the state of Illinois directly as a result of the construction and operations of the project. Construction on it would be around 160-ish temporary jobs, depending on the stage of construction we're at.
Mr. Adams, can I interrupt you real quick? Could you speak up a little bit so everyone can hear you?
Absolutely. Sorry about that.
Little
Take the mask off so you can hear
Yeah,
it.
you can take the mask off.
little slower with your.
Folks,
Slow, slower, too.
folks, please.
Yeah, the clarity is not good at all.
All right. Is this better?
Better for you? I can hear them. The clarity is not good.
All right. Well, I'll try it now, and we'll see how this goes. So Just to repeat, in case anything was missed, this project represents an overall capital investment of around $180 million. As I stated, about 21 million of that is anticipated to be local, as in state of Illinois, dollars spent as a result of the construction operations of the project. We anticipate around 160, maybe a little bit more, temporary construction jobs during the construction of the facility. As I mentioned, we have around 3 to 4 full-time staff members on site operating the facility. And one thing we do in addition, above and beyond our tax obligations on all of Geronimo Energy's utility scale wind and solar projects we develop, we set aside funds. In this case, we're proposing an education fund, 501c3, where we deposit $200 per megawatt per year into the fund to use for the school district to use for whatever types of projects that they'd like to do. We've seen, school districts build playgrounds with the money, or townships buy, for in case of a wind farm we did in South Dakota, township bought, a couple new plows for the area. And so that calculation brings us to an overall impact of $700,000 over 20 years, but set aside specifically for the school district that the project is in. So a little bit more specifics on the actual project area. We're located in South Dixon and Mechusa Townships, as I mentioned, about 4 miles southeast of Dixon. The project area spans 1,288 acres approximately. Around 984 acres of that 1,288 will be our low-growing turf mix underneath the solar modules. And on this site specifically, we have about 239 acres that in that project area that we're not proposing to put solar panels on. We'll have an open area pollinator mix in those areas, primarily due to drainage and those are some wetter, depression areas that we're not going to be proposing to build in. So I think that's generally a high-level overview on the project and our SUP request. Happy to answer questions if there's any specific. I think last time we were here, we gave.
Sir, I'll take care of the question. You just testify, please.
Yep. So that's it for the project specifics.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Adamich, you talked about having this open area pollinator mix. What is that specifically designed for?
Yeah, around the outsides of the array and in areas of the fenced area where we're not proposing to put solar panels on, we'll plant a native grass mix that'll include seeds for different pollinator plants with the intent of promoting pollinator habitat. We found it to be very complementary to projects where the primary surrounding use is agricultural. And it will also provide for, permanent stable ground cover to increase infiltration and decrease runoff on the site.
And included in the petition is the request for certain variances from 3 parcels of land within the project. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And under the ordinance, what is the current setback for those 3 parcels?
For the 3 parcels in question that we're proposing variances on, the setback would be a 300-foot setback from the property line.
And do you know why it's 300 foot from the property line?
Yes, there are 3 adjacent parcels to our project area that are zoned agricultural and currently used for row crop ag and immediately adjacent to our project area that are platted subdivisions. And per ordinance, we are required to be set back 300 feet from those property lines of those parcels.
Are there any homes built in those platted subdivisions?
Adjacent to our project, no, there are not. It's the current existing uses on those are row crop ag.
And it's my understanding that you have a few slides specifically for the variance request. Is that correct?
Yes.
Please proceed.
Yes, so we have a slide here which demonstrates where on our project area we're proposing the 3 variances from. I'll start with the picture on the left. On the southeastern side of our, southwestern side of our project area, there's a parcel, and the specific parcel number in our project is 18-08-25-100-003, where we abut an existing row crop ag field that is a platted subdivision. I believe it has been for the past many years, but there are no homes on the parcel. And so we're respectfully requesting a variance to be able to match the setback on that property to be equal to that of the other parcels in our project area. We overall don't think that 300-foot strip of property, which would remain if we did meet the requirements in the ordinance, would yield a good return for a farmer if they were to farm that 300-foot strip for row crop ag uses because of our inability to utilize it within the solar array. We believe this is specific to, how the parcels are set up. It creates an access issue through the site or through adjoining properties. It'd be difficult for somebody to get large equipment, a combine or a planter up to that strip, either having to traverse, through the solar array or secure, a private easement with adjoining landowners, potentially damaging their crops on their way to traverse and farm that strip of property. In our opinion, we don't believe that given the current existing row crop ag use, that the granting of this variance would, impede or otherwise impact the character of that parcel. Even though it is technically a platted subdivision, it's currently zoned as ag and used as such. So we have slides of the other parcels on the northeastern parts of the property area, but the essential details on the request remain the same. The property in question, that 300-foot strip reasonably can't yield a reasonable return for a farmer looking to farm that strip of property. It presents a very unideal strip to farm for corn or soybeans, which is currently used as now. And it's specific to those areas because it creates an access challenge. Okay.
All right, off the record, as long as we have this opportunity, it's my fault and I forgot, but we might as well take this time to cure another. We need to set future dates, and I would like to go through the month of August. So I'm going to start, and I'm just going to announce a date, and then I'm going to go down the list of necessary parties and just indicate yes or no. Monday, August 10th, Mr. Forster.
Yes.
Mr. Burrow.
Yes.
Mr. Pratt.
Yes.
Mr. Bothy.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
No.
Ms. Duffy.
Sure.
Mr. Boonstra.
Yes.
Alice.
Yes.
Peggy.
Yes.
Ms. Kennedy.
Yes.
Mr. McBride within earshot. That's all right. Tuesday, August 11th, Mr. Forster.
Yes.
Mr. Burrow.
Yes.
Mr. Pratt.
Yes.
Mr. Bothy.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Ms. Duffy.
Yes.
Mr. Boonstra.
Yes.
Alice.
Yes.
Peggy.
Yes.
Ms. Kennedy.
Yes.
Mr. McBride. Still can't hear. August Wednesday, August 12th. Mr. Forster,
Yes.
Mr. Burrow,
Yes.
Mr. Pratt,
Yes.
Mr. Bothey, Mr. Hughes,
No.
Ms. Duffy,
Yes.
Mr. Boonstra,
Yes.
Alice,
Yes.
Peggy,
Yes.
Ms. Kennedy.
No.
Next one will be Monday, August 17th. Mr. Forster,
Yes.
Mr. Burrow,
Yes.
Mr. Pratt,
Yes.
Mr. Bothey,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Ms. Duffy,
Yes.
Mr. Boonstra,
Yes.
Alice,
Yes.
Peggy,
Yes.
Ms. Kennedy.
Yes.
18th is a Tuesday, August 18th. Mr. Forster,
Yes.
Mr. Burrow,
Yes.
Mr. Pratt.
Yes.
Mr. Bothey. Yes. Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Ms. Duffy,
Yes.
Mr. Boonstra,
Yes.
Alice,
Yes.
Peggy,
Yes.
Ms. Kennedy.
Yes.
Wednesday, August 19th. Mr. Forster,
Yes.
Mr. Burrow,
Yes.
Mr. Pratt,
Yes.
Mr. Bothey,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
No.
Duffy,
Yes.
Mr. Boonstra,
Yes.
Alice,
Yes.
Peggy,
Yes.
Ms. Kennedy.
Yes.
20th is a Thursday, August 20th.
Judge, before you get started with that one, that's the Lee County Board Day.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Remove it from that. Monday, August 24th. Mr. Forster,
Yes.
Mr. Burrow,
Yes.
Mr. Pratt,
Yes.
Mr. Bothey,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Ms. Duffy,
Yes.
Mr. Boonstra,
Yes.
Alice,
Yes.
Peggy,
Yes.
Ms. Kennedy.
Yes.
Here we got to circle back. I didn't see you, Mr. Myers, and I apologize. So I'm just gonna address you for a minute, Rex. Monday, August 10th. Huh?
He has to be unmuted first.
Oh, he's on Zoom. That's why I didn't see him.
All those dates work with me, Judge.
All the dates so far?
Yes, all the dates so far work.
And I apologize for not seeing you on Zoom. My eyes are, believe it or not in the back of my head. Okay, back to what we were doing. Tuesday, August 25th, Mr. Forster,
Yes.
Mr. Burrow,
Yes.
Mr. Pratt, Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Ms. Duffy.
Yes.
Did I say Mr. Hughes? Yes?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Mr. Bothey? All right. Mr. Boonstra?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
Peggy?
Yes.
Ms. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
There are only three more. Wednesday, August 26th. Mr. Forster?
Yes.
Mr. Burrow?
Yes.
Mr. Pratt?
Yes.
Mr. Bothey?
Yes.
Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Mr. Myers?
Yes.
Ms. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Boonstra?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
Peggy?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Thursday, August 27th. Mr. Forster?
Yes.
Mr. Burrow?
Yes.
Mr. Pratt?
Yes.
Mr. Bothey?
Yes.
Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Ms. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Mr. Boonstra?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
Peggy?
Yes.
Ms. Kennedy?
Yes.
And lastly, August 31st, which is a Monday. Mr. Forster?
Yes.
Mr. Burrow?
Yes.
Pratt?
Yes.
Mr. Bothey?
Yes.
Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Ms. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Mr. Boonstra?
Yes.
Alice?
Yes.
Peggy?
Yes.
Ms. Kennedy?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting, but I had to get that done or else we would.
That's great.
There seems to be some confusion on Zoom as to when people can ask questions. We have one gentleman.
Folks, as I explained in my opening, and I'm addressing the people on Zoom, there are stages to this proceeding, and we want you to be able to ask questions and to participate. However, we do it in an orderly fashion. Questions just don't pop up. This gentleman's not even finished testifying yet. And as I explained, the questioning will begin once Ms. Kennedy finishes questioning her witness, then we go to Mr. Boonstra, Ms. Duffy, the county, the ZBA, and then I will start with interested parties. So we'll get there. Everybody come. We got obviously lots of evenings to go. The longest one I ever did was, I think, in Bureau County, and it took 38 nights, just to give you an idea of what might be ahead. So,
Your Honor, can I just get up and look closer at that?
no, because of the social distancing thing. But if you want to get an application, they'll give you one right there.
Thank you.
Might as well do it now.
Okay.
Might as well do it now.
Sorry, Your Honor. Thank you.
I gotta find a microphone so they can hear me. Thanks, Judge. Just a brief announcement, in case you don't know who I am. I'm Charlie Booth from Lee County State's Attorney. As an announcement for all of you.
Charlie, a little closer.
Yes, sir. For any of you that are going to be curious about it, Mr. Pratt will not be a part of the fact finding or the recommendations portion. While I don't believe he has an actual conflict, because there is an objector and because there's an appearance of a conflict, he is willing to step down and have the alternate doing the fact finding as well as the recommendations portion.
Okay. All right, back to the business at hand. Ms. Kennedy, further questions? We were actually in the middle of things and then the microphones didn't work, and so go ahead.
Judge, as a quick technical matter, I believe that the presentation is a bit blurry for those on Zoom. I have emailed a copy of the presentation slides to Dee Duffy. I don't know if we can share the screen, share our screen on Zoom.
That's beyond my technical expertise, I'll tell you that. We'll have to ask Mr. McBride, but if those folks want to get a copy of the PowerPoint presentation that he just testified about, I would like to see the applicant provide copies, and people can pick them up, I don't know, from Ms. Duffy at her office during the day or something.
Sure.
Look, here's the expert.
Judge, I'll just leave copies of this presentation with Dee Duffy, and those who are interested can pick them up from her.
And please leave plenty so folks can.
Sure.
Okay. All right. You may continue with what.
Mr. Adamich, you were in the middle of your testimony on the variance request.
Yes.
Please proceed.
Okay, I was just finishing up. So essentially, the second two variance requests are in the eastern part of the project area on two particular parcels, as kind of just walked through before the Mike mishap. It creates essentially an inefficient to farm strip that presents a unique burden to the property owner to farm. What's more, on the parcels on the northeastern part of the project, they do have trees on either side of them. So on the property lines, generally speaking, there's a number of trees there. So, essentially, we don't believe that granting this would impact the essential character of the area if we were allowed to have the typical side and rear yard setbacks that we have elsewhere on the project on those particular parcels, particularly because their current use is row crop ag. So we would be essentially getting closer to the row crop ag use with the variance request. So that's just a high level overview on the variance requests, and I think that's all I've got. Unless Courtney, you have a question for me on the team?
Yes, I just like 1 moment, please. Mr. Adamich, for each of the 3 parcels, what setback are you requesting?
We're requesting a 15-foot side and rear yard setback consistent with the ordinance.
And for each of the 3 parcels, could you explain what hardship would be imposed to the company if you were required to adhere to the 300-foot setback?
As explained, we would experience an area of the solar array, essentially, or the property that would be unusable for essentially solar panels. And we would work with the property owner to see about having it farmed for row crop, corn or beans. In working on nearly 100 of these projects, I think most of the farmers I know would say that's a very inefficient strip of property to get equipment on and farm for corn or beans. And so we believe that represents a hardship on us as the applicant and the underlying property.
Would there be any hardship, in your opinion, on the property owner if you were to adhere to the 300-foot setback?
Yes, for reasons just mentioned.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I think I covered it in the presentation with the pictures of the proposed variances. I think that shows paints the picture of what it is that we're dealing with from an adjacency standpoint. Overall, those strips of property represent about 35 acres or so, all full for those 300-foot strips.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
All right. Questions of this witness? Mr. Boonstra. There you go.
No, Judge, thank you.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
No, Judge, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Duffy.
No, thank you.
Members of the ZBA. Mr. Forster. Mr. Burrow.
Just to explain this again, make sure we understand this variation, the variance you're speaking of. It's currently 3 parcels and each of them about 300 feet wide then?
Yes.
Okay. And then approximately 35 acres in total?
Yes, if you add up the length of each of the the abutting properties, multiply by 300 foot, you get around 35 acres or so, highlighted in green on those, on that slide and on our application, so about 35 acres.
Okay, you're requesting then to go to the normal 15-foot setback, common?
Yes, sir.
Have you spoken to the neighbors or got any response from the neighbors on this variance yet?
We've spoken generally with a number of neighbors, particular to the variance. We haven't had a lot of discussions, I would say, with the adjoining properties as to kind of their plans for home or creating subdivisions in those areas. Based on, actually, we did on the southwestern corner, and we don't anticipate any issues there on the northeast. I'm less familiar with all the conversations we had up there, but we don't anticipate impeding the growth or of those parcels there. It doesn't seem like there's many residential subdivisions on the horizon up there.
How many property owners would this variance affect in total? It's 3.
I believe it'd be 3 property owners total.
3 total. Thank you.
Mr. Pratt,
No question.
Mr. Bothing, Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm going to continue with Mr. Burrow's line of question relative to the variance, since it is the variance that you're asking for. You indicate that although the one for the southwest you did have some conversation with, why haven't you been in conversation with the other 2 property owners?
We mailed them as a part of the project, and I correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe we've heard from them yet on it. Well, I guess we've heard from one of them on it. Yeah.
Okay.
Is that it? All right, that concludes the questioning of the necessary parties. I think it is only fair, since people were having a hard time seeing the display on the wall, whether you were here in person or by Zoom, and I've asked the applicant to provide copies of the PowerPoint. People have been able to hear, they just haven't been able to see the PowerPoint. And I've asked the applicant to provide copies making them available to everyone. It is only fair not to put people in a position of having to ask questions without having been able to see this evening. So I'm going to recess the session till the next evening, and we've got a couple things to talk about. Copies of this PowerPoint that people weren't able to see, whether in here because you were at a bad angle or because the Zoom was blurry. Copies of this PowerPoint will be available at Ms. Duffy's office, or maybe she can even make
I will
that.
publish it on the website.
Okay, she'll publish it on the website. There you go. That's even better. On her, not the website, her website, her zoning and planning.
Lee County website.
Lee County website, the zoning and planning pages. Thank you. So we'll recess until the next session, and I've been looking at who's available and who's not. Mr. Hughes, I recognize you're not, but we have to keep things moving along. And you'll have the transcripts available to read. So we will recess until Monday, August 10th at 7 o'clock here at the old Lee County Courthouse. Same limitations apply, masks, social distancing. And the deputy, in essence, makes it first come, first serve for interested parties. So everyone, stay healthy, stay safe, have a nice weekend as you can, and we'll see who we see on Monday at 7 o'clock. Out of respect for your fellow citizens, I really would like people to file out a little more carefully.
Yeah.